Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Noon, and I just wanted to come on here to talk about something personal to me, which is leaving my corporate 9 to 5. I don't even know where to begin with this, but I just wanted to come on and talk about it because I figured why not? If I document it, then wherever I end up later in life, I can look back on this and kind of see my journey. And then on the flip side of that, I can also hopefully help other people with my story who might be struggling in the same way or similar ways as me at their corporate job. So let's get into it. I have been in corporate America for maybe almost about 10 years, not exactly 10 years, but if you round it up, it would be 10 years. It feels like forever though. But really, the true number is more like 7 years. I went to college and went to grad school. I actually thought I was going to be going into a different career, but that actually did not work out for me. It was just something that I found that I was not actually passionate about, and so I just jumped ship right there because it just wasn't happening. um I was burnt out even then. In grad school, that's where it all really started, to the degree that I've experienced it today. But it just wasn't a path for me, so I made that decision to leave that field, which was going to be physical therapy. And then when I decided to leave grad school, I ended up with a master's, but ultimately I ended up in clinical research. And that is where my journey began. So essentially, the way I ended up in clinical research was when I left grad school, there was a girl that I knew at the time. Um, and she was telling me that her employer was hiring. And I was like, okay, bet, because I just left grad school without it was supposed to be a doctorate degree. I left school without my doctorate degree. I got this master's and I have no idea what I'm going to do. Bet, let me go into research because research makes sense. I got my degrees in the sciences, and that's something I can do. I'm capable of that. I went to this company and I was loving it because fresh out of grad school, I'm making, you know what I mean? I don't want to get into the numbers. I wasn't making that much, but back then in 2019, it was a lot. I don't know about now, but yeah, now it's not. I know about now. Now it's not. I could definitely say that. I don't even know why I said I don't know about now, because I already know. But anyway, I took the job at this company. I was making bank for what it was back then. First job, first corporate job out of school. And I was grateful for it. And, it was quite an adjustment. um, I was learning new things that I didn't know about. The clinical research field is quite broad, and there's so much that you can be doing in this field. But I was pretty much a clinical trial specialist. So that would include like in house CRA type role, combined with project associate type role. The companies be merging together, you be doing 5 6 7 jobs and all like that. So anyway, I ended up here at this job, and it was all good and well. I was there for about 2 years before I left. And remember, I started in 2019, so that was right before the pandemic. And then it was actually July, I think June, July 2019. So I had a good couple of months in the office before COVID hit, and then we all had to work from home. So it's like, okay, bet I could do that. I don't mind that. But my role anyway, they allowed you to have one work from home day after 6 months, and then two work from home days after a year. So I went from hybrid to completely remote, and I was okay with that. However, I ended up leaving at 2 years because there was somebody else at the time that told me that their job was hiring in research, but this was more like I guess, marketing social research. And they were actually the hiring manager. And she was like, you should apply. And at the time, I was already kind of unhappy with my current role just because they weren't trying to give me more money. Like, I had been there for 2 years, no real pay increase, no promotion in sight, and I'm just there. So when I spoke to this person that I knew, and they mentioned that their company was hiring and that I should apply, I was like, okay, bet. And it's fully remote. I can do that because at this time, again, I was there for about 2 years. So they were coming out of the quarantine of COVID, and then kind of requiring people to come back to the office. It was slow, but eventually everybody was going to have to come back in. And I had already gotten used to working remotely at this time. So I'm like, I think I'm open to switching jobs. And this job also had, way more opportunity just as far as like traveling, and just cool things like that. I was younger, so it was like I definitely want to have this experience. I went to this new role, and I was making a little bit more than what I was making at my first role, but essentially it was about the same, maybe about 2,000 more. But I was happy to be there. Fully remote, nobody bothering me. I could be in my own space. I loved it. The only concern that I did have with that is because it was such a small company, and I'm talking like, I don't even know, it was less than 50 of us for sure. I can't remember the exact number. I was just concerned that I wasn't like really gaining real transferable skills that I would be able to take to another role in the future. So that started to bother me the longer I was there. However, um, I can say that in my 2.5 years there, I did get pay increases, and I ended up making more money than I have ever made. It still wasn't that much, but it was like more than I had ever seen. So I was grateful for that, of course. But eventually, I ended up getting laid off from this role. And I was like freaking out because this is the first time that I got laid off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I started applying for roles like crazy immediately. Like, it was like my part time job. You know what I'm saying? And luckily, I was able to land another role, I guess within a month or two. So I got laid off in March. And then I ended up getting the role that I have now. I guess I heard back in April, but then I got the job in May, and then I started in June. So that's how that worked. So that was like a quick turnaround for me because I know that there's been people that have been laid off, and it's taken like a long time for them to find work, or maybe they haven't found work at all still. And so I was really grateful to find this job. And this role was going back into the clinical research. So if you remember, I told you my first role was in clinical research. Working as a clinical trial specialist. And then my next role was more in the marketing or social research. And then I ended up back in clinical research in my current role. So when I got hired at my current employer, I was very happy and excited to start this role. It was a role I had been, researching a little bit beforehand. But again, it was a quick turnaround. Remember, I got laid off, and then I'm like, what am I going to do? What other role can I take on? I have a research background. And so I found the role that I'm in today, which is a clinical research coordinator. And I was like, okay, this sounds like something I can do. Let me apply to some roles that, have this title, and I'll be a clinical research coordinator. And so that's what I did. I took the role, was grateful to be there, and I literally cried when I got my first check because it was so little. Like, I was not used to seeing that number. I took a pay cut, so it was like what the heck, you know what I mean? But whatever, I persevered at the end of the day. But, being laid off and still having bills to pay, rent to pay, all that, I was still trying to catch up. I was playing catch up. I really loved my job for about the first year. Like, it was great. Like, I remember talking to my mom and saying, I really love my job. And at the time, my mom had got laid off as well, which was crazy because it was like that came out of nowhere. But when I had started my role, she had got laid off. And so I would just check in with her and be like, I love my job. You know what I mean? Like, I would say this to her verbatim, like a couple times in a month or whatever, when I first started there. And I was really happy. I was able to pick up on, my job responsibilities pretty quickly and things like that. And the environment was nice at the time. It was all that I can ask for. The only thing that was really um not what I wanted was the salary. So anyway, it's a year in at this point, and um we become severely short staffed where the people on our core team had left. We had a core group of 4 people doing the same role. So we operated as a team, just trying to do things that needed to be done in clinic and everything else. And then about a year in, it was only me and another girl because the other 2 had left. One had left for another role that was paying more money, and I understood that. And then another person had left because they got accepted into med school. So they went to start their journey as a med student. Then that just left me and another one of my coworkers to hold the fort down for months because we were short staffed. And at the same time, my manager was out on maternity leave. So that wasn't as big of a deal because she doesn't do what we do anyway. And by that time, I had already been well versed in my role. So I mean, she was just there to help make sure that our projects were moving along. But other than that, she wasn't really doing much in our day-to-day activities in that sense. So that did not really affect the workload that we had, if that makes sense. But yes, so she was gone, and then it was just me and the other girl, holding down the fort and doing the work of 4 people. That became very exhausting over time. There was one person that came on right before my manager had left out, but they were part time. And they were training. So we also had to train someone while we were short staffed doing the work of 4 people. We also had to train this other person. And they were part time at the time, but then eventually they came on full time after they had graduated from school. So I also wanted to add here that there was also another person that was added to the team, so a 4th person that came on while my manager was out. And so technically, we weren't only just training one person, but we were training 2 people. There was a little bit of overlap in the training. So by the time my manager had got back in October, which you'll hear about in a couple of minutes, it was actually a 4-person team at that time, and we had trained both of them to be equipped with how to handle their responsibilities of the role. Long story short, we made it through the summer. The other person eventually became full time, so then it became 3 of us. But I still felt like I never got a break from the responsibilities that I was performing on a day to day basis. So was so burnt out. And that was in June of 2025. And I can tell you, when my manager got back in October and we were fully staffed, because by then we had a 4-person team, I still felt burnt out. My manager's like, okay, so you guys, like, you guys did what you had to do. I know it was tough, but you guys did it. How are you feeling? The one girl was like, yeah, I'm feeling great now, whatever. I feel better, that we were fully staffed. And I said, I don't know. I'm still recovering. You know what I mean? Like I just had to tell her I'm still recovering. That was October 2025. It is now June 2026 and I'm still burnt out. I can say that I ended up feeling a little bit better sometime in January, but it was nowhere near back to my baseline. You know what I mean? I still felt like I was operating at a deficit. I was so burnt out that it was hard for me to wake up in the mornings to go to work. And I'm like, okay, if this is truly how I'm feeling and it's not changing, let me at least try to, shift something internally to see if that helps me feel any better. So that's what I did, or, I tried to do actively. And while it helped me just a little bit, I feel like it only helped so much, right? So I would change my mindset. It would work for maybe a week or so, or whatever, however long. And then I would still end up feeling ultimately burnt out how I felt. I would still feel like it's a drag to wake up in the morning to go to this place of work. And it just wasn't doing it for me. Ultimately, I just kind of came to the conclusion that no matter how I shift my mindset, this place is not for me. And so, because it's not for me, I'm going to feel how I feel. And on top of that, not to mention, because I forgot to even mention this, but on top of feeling burnt out from being understaffed for so many months, things started to get a lot more micromanagey. And not inherently because of my manager, but because of the person on top of her. So she would kind of say what needs to be done or what she didn't think that we're doing and questioning us and stuff like that. So then my manager would have to fall in line with that and give us orders based on that. And it was just a lot, very micromanaging, things changing, the rules and just the procedures and processes that we had, just so much was changing. It was making things 10 times worse, to the point where even my other coworkers started to feel the implications of that, right? Because my other coworkers were new, right? They were new compared to me and the other person. But even they started to feel the effects of all the changes going on and the micromanaging. I did not feel appreciated. And, feeling unappreciated like that when you're working very hard and you're burnt out, it just makes you feel like, well, I don't want to do any of this then. You know what I mean? If this is how y'all are going to act, because we run this for real. At the end of the day, we run it. None of this stuff would be happening if it wasn't for us. I just feel like with all of that combined, even though I was changing my mindset internally and trying very, very hard to be in a good headspace for myself and the people around me, to make the work environment, the best that it could be for what it was, I still was very much suffering. And I don't know, I just got to a point where I just wanted to quit on the spot. Like I was so stressed and under pressure. It was like it was beginning to take over my personal life. Whereas before I could leave work, not think about work, and feel okay in my personal time, and then go to sleep and wake up for the next day. I no longer had that balance. And to be honest, I don't even know if it was ever a balance, but I know that work began to take up more of my emotional space, and I was not happy with that. I was miserable. And to a degree, I still am, but it's getting a lot better because, again, I'm coming to the understanding and realization that I need to leave my corporate job and that there's actually something I can do about it. Before, I was feeling very stuck, like I don't know what I'm going to do, where I can go from here, and things like that. There was an opportunity that came up in the same department where I was going to be able to transition into a new role. So I guess like a promotion to a level 2, which I recently applied for. But then, like a week or two later, I pulled my application, and I told my manager, like, hey, there's just some events and things that have gone on in my personal life, and I don't think that right now is a good time for me to take on something new. But before I get too deep into that, I did just want to add um, to what I was saying, which was I was very miserable, and it got to the point where my mental health was suffering severely, severely. Like I probably could have been approved for like a leave of absence if I took that route, but I just didn't know how to do it. And also, um, I was just so drained from working. Like I just didn't even have the energy to try to figure it out. So it was just I felt very stuck. I felt very very stuck in where I was. And I was in therapy and everything, not necessarily for work, but for some other things. But the topic of work would come up a lot because of how much I was struggling with work and my satisfaction there and things like that. So me and my therapist had been talking about this as well, and we kind of came to the conclusion that I needed something different, but at the time I had no idea what that something different was, or I didn't even have a clue what it could be. So I again felt very very stuck in my situation and wasn't sure what I would be able to do. But nonetheless, I persevered, um, obviously, because I'm still here. But um, I just knew that a change needed to be made because one day my mental was just so bad. I called my mom and I just was going off on the phone saying things that, just was not me and just was not healthy. And I wanted to quit on the spot right then and there. I was so tempted to, but I knew that, I had to pay rent. I had things going on that I needed to pay for. So, it was a rock and a hard place for sure, but I knew at that moment something needed to change. So that was probably like a Thursday. It was a Thursday that I was on the phone with my mom. And then the very next week, I'm like, what can I do? What can I do to get me out of this situation? Because this is no longer serving me at all. And I'm at a place where I don't even recognize myself and I'm running on fumes, like for real. So this was like a SOS, like, what can I do? Because at this point, what I'm doing now is not working and I need to figure out where I can go from here and why I'm feeling this way, right? So I took inventory and I'm like, okay, when did I start feeling like this? Not necessarily with this job, but in general in my life. When did I start feeling down and like depressed and just, stressed and like all these type of things, right? And what is it that I'm not experiencing now that I was experiencing back then before I even started to feel all these negative feelings? So I'm like, okay, back when I was in college, or I guess before college, I was very creative. I did a lot of creative things. I made videos on YouTube. I would write, scripts for myself. I would make music. There was so much that I did that I enjoyed back then that I no longer did, or that I no longer do. But I guess I'm trying to get back into those things right now. But I'm like, I guess it has been quite some time. It has been quite some time. And so I'm like, because it's been over 10 years since I did anything really creative, like, that's probably why I'm suffering right now. Like, literally, the process of going to school and going to get a job literally killed my creativity and killed my spirit. My job is so rigid and so strict that there's no room for me to express myself. There's no room for me to be creative. There's no room for any of that. I'm just being told what to do. And while that was, I guess, okay in my previous roles, it was no longer okay right now. And some of that is due to the environment itself and like how management is, but then other parts of it too is because I'm also not the same person that I was back in 2019 when I first started my, career in corporate. I have grown and evolved so much since then, and I've been growing more and more in touch with who I am. And so things that were acceptable back then are no longer acceptable for me right now. And so that makes sense that my body and my mind are responding to those restrictions because I'm not operating in my authentic self or in my authentic nature. When I figured this out, I was like, okay, I need to find ways to be more creative. What can I do to get creative? Maybe I can, have a job part time and do something else creative that will bring in some income. So I thought about candle making. As you guys have seen on my channel, or if you haven't, you can go look and see. But I made a video about candle making, how to make a candle. You know what I mean? And so that was something that, I was like, this seems interesting. Let me see how to do it. I picked up the skill and, I've made a couple of candles since then. And I want to continue on making candles and seeing what I can do with that. And then I was saying maybe I could do some other creative things like getting back into content creation, just whatever else that kind of speaks to my spirit that allows me to express. I was just trying to think of all the things that I could possibly do to awaken or reawaken my creative spirit, to help keep me sane and balanced out while I'm in my current role, and or maybe get to a place in my creative business where it generates enough income, but maybe supplement that with a part-time job that I can do, that isn't as stressful as the job that I'm doing now. Back to what I was saying about the role that I applied for, the level 2 role. So I applied to the level 2 role and I withdrew my application about 2 weeks later or a week and a half later. And that is because I found a different career path that seemed to be of interest to me. And I randomly came across it because, I think, when was this? Like almost 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it'll be 2 weeks ago on Friday, 2 days from now. But literally 2 weeks ago, I came home from work, went to my mom's to, pick up my dog, Rufus, before I went home. And when I walked in the door, I just hugged her and started crying, like immediately. Like that was the first thing that I did. And it's because I am just not happy where I am. And it sucks to say that because I really did love my job at first. But it's just it's just something about corporate that just kills your spirit, man. It's just crazy, and it's just so much. I don't even want to get into it because I'm getting emotional, but it's just something about it where it's just like no matter what I do, nothing is enough. Nothing is enough. And I just felt so exhausted. I'm tired of feeling exhausted every day because there's no reason why I'm getting a full night's sleep every night and I wake up exhausted to go to work. Or maybe I some days I don't wake up exhausted, but by the end of the day I'm exhausted. I have no energy left over for myself or for the things I'm trying to build in my life. I have no time or energy to even explore who I am anymore. It's like you just sign your life away to these companies that don't care anything about you. They're not pouring back into you. that's why a lot of people feel how they feel at their corporate jobs. Like, I'm exhausted now after work, but I was like, I have to make this video because I want to share my story, and days will continue to pass and I'll still feel exhausted, and eventually I won't do anything at all. You know what I mean? So I had to kind of force myself to get on here today to do this. But I know I'm going to be happy that I did it in the future when I look back. But like, this is just a testament to how exhausted I am in my day-to-day life, and I have never felt like that before, not to this degree, in this role that I'm in right now. At my other jobs, I have felt like bored or whatever like that, but I truly have felt so much distress in this role that it's insane. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, I basically just cried as I was hugging my mom because I just needed to release that. Nothing even bad happened at work that day, but I just needed to release that. And I would often cry at random times. Like, while at work, there's been times I'm holding back tears, so many times, because I'm burnt out, right? But anyway, so I released that with my mom. And then when I went home, I was like, let me look up what else I can do. Because I had looked up before, some options and things like that, but I wasn't really finding anything. Like, I was having a hard time figuring out what else can I do? What can I pivot to? But this day was different because when I came home on that Friday, I did a little bit of research and I came across a field that immediately drew my interest, and that is aesthetics. Now, I had never like really knew about aesthetics before. These are people that do skincare or, waxing, eyebrows, lashes, things like that. I knew that there were people out there that did waxing, but I didn't really know what they were called. I would go to like the nail place and like they would do waxing, but I didn't know that, it was a specific name for that industry. And I knew that people would do lashes and stuff like that, but I was not interested in lashes. I don't wear makeup, none of that type of stuff. So the career field of aesthetics never really crossed my mind. I never knew it existed. It just was not a thing. But this day I came across it, and for whatever reason, I decided to do a little bit more research, and it just kind of drew me in. I'm not even playing. Like, it drew me in. I literally, when I got home, it was like in the late afternoon. I was doing research on it and watching videos and just looking things up from that time all the way until close to midnight that night. And like, literally, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. And so I I was like, I think I might want to go into aesthetics. Like, this might be a career I can do. And so literally the next day, I'm telling like people close to me that, I've talked to about my job situation. I'm like, I think I came across a new career field that I might actually pursue. And ever since then, I've been on it. I've been doing research day in the life of an esthetician. I've been looking at just content from estheticians about the work that they do, like chemical pills or skincare or makeup or whatever, things like that. I've really been drawn to the skincare content, just learning the science behind that. I was so good at science when I was in school. And I think that's really what's drawing me in, because in order to get good results in skincare, you have to know product, you have to know ingredients, you have to know, the biology and the chemistry and the makeup of, your skin and these chemicals that you're using. So I have been like looking up all types of content. Like I said, I've even been looking at like students, when they post their content, what it's like being in esthetician school, or looking at state board prep, right? Like I'm looking at state board prep material. Like I'm in school right now, like YouTube University, okay? I'm in school right now looking this stuff up, learning it. What are they asking on the boards? Some of the questions um, are familiar to me because, again, I was great at science. And I'm like, okay, so if I can learn this skill, I'm already rooted because I have the science background and the science knowledge, and I enjoy science. If I can learn this skill and I can merge it together to understand, this field, the different services and things like that, and help people and educate them on their skin, I actually might be very successful in this and enjoy it, not only because of that, but because of several other things that stood out to me in my research, right? I'm a very personable person. I want to get to know people. I like having conversation one on one. I do well one on one because I'm more of an introvert. So, you know, being able to build your clientele and have that one on one dynamic with your clients, I would love that. You know what I mean? I think that would be so great to build relationships in that way with other women or even men, if they're into that type of thing. It was just a lot of things that stood out to me, which I can't even begin to say here. Maybe I'll make another video, but there were just things that I was like, oh my goodness, where has this been? I've been looking at materials and doing research ever since then. And that was like 2 weeks ago. And I also did a tour of one of the schools nearby to see if I, liked it, to see what they offered. And I have another tour scheduled for this upcoming Friday. So I'll be able to compare the two, see which one I like the best, and see which one I would want to go to. I looked at the pros and the cons, and I know that the cons can really be loud, especially when you're doing a career change and you like stability like I do. So it's like, okay, these people are saying all these negative things. Is this something that I should really go into? Am I making a mistake leaving my corporate job to go into an industry that's not as like stable according to a lot of other people financially? There's so many things to think about, right? But I ultimately have tried to quiet that voice just by reassuring myself, like, I have a master's degree at the end of the day. I have 7 years of working experience in research. And so if I go to esthetician school, and it doesn't work out for me when I, put my effort forth, ultimately I can just go and get another job in corporate America. Like, corporate is not going anywhere. So I can always go back to corporate America if I somehow fall flat on my face. At least I have a new skill, right? I have a new skill that I've learned that I'm licensed for. So now I can still charge for my services. Even if I can't make sustainable income, I can still offer services on the side to supplement income. And so, even that in itself, having licensure to do something is freedom, right? So I start to think that way about all the ways that it can go well for me, but then not even just the ways that it can go well, but also like all the ways that it benefits me, even if it doesn't go well, right? So I don't lose. I'll still have my master's degree and I'll have a new skill with a license that can make me money. So I am just completely thrilled about this new opportunity that I have. And I'm so deep into it emotionally and mentally that I already kind of know, like, there's no turning back. Like, I already turned down the role that I had applied for, the level 2 position. And my heart is not really in my job right now, the job that I'm currently at, but it is being pulled toward aesthetics. And so it's something really exciting that I'm looking forward to. I don't know the outcome of what will happen, but I'm looking forward to where it might lead. And with all the research that I've done and the circumstances that I'm in right now, um, I think it's a risk worth taking. And so that is why Um, I am fully committed to doing this. I'm leaving my corporate 9 to 5 as a clinical research coordinator, and I will be starting a new journey as an esthetician student. I am nervous. I am, yeah, I'm just so nervous because it's new. I've never done this before. I've never did a career change before because, as I mentioned, I've been in research since 2019, but I think that it's time for me to take a risk and bet on myself. And wherever that leads me, I know that I'll be closer to where I need to be, because where I am right now, feeling stuck, that's not where I need to be, right? So I can't do any more damage than what's already been done, especially since I'm pursuing something that is of genuine interest and that is pulling me in. You know what I mean? Like this feels right. Not only does it feel right, but it feels like something that I'm choosing for myself rather than just, having it chosen for me, or like not even knowing how did I even end up here, right? I can consciously say, I did my research on this field. It interests me and I want to learn more. I just wanted to come on and share my story. Hopefully, it helps other people, and hopefully, you guys will follow me on my journey, because I do plan to document it as best as I can. So, as I am coming out of my burnout, I'm still burnt out, but as I'm coming out of it, I want to try to do more content and just get more into my creative spirit, get in my creative bag, as they call it. So, yes, please go on this journey with me. And thank you so much for the support. This video has already been kind of long, so I wasn't expecting that, but I wanted to make sure I did my due diligence and just sharing my story. I probably left out some things as well, but again, I can make some videos about some of those other topics that I touched on during the video today. And thank you for watching. And if you want to see more content, definitely like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time.